Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another episode of my Shock to the Past series. Now for those of you who aren't aware of this because you're very new to my channel, my Shock to the Past series was a collection of movies from the 60s, 70s and 80s that shocked audiences back then and how they shape up by today's standards. So I haven't done an episode for quite a while, so I thought why not give this a shot and get it back on track with a film from France in 1981 directed by Andrzej Zalowski, and this film is called Possession. So Possession was a movie that really shocked audiences back in the day, and it's a movie that really got people talking about the performances of Sam Neill and Isabella Gianni. Now these two play a married couple who have a young son. They live in Berlin, and Sam Neill's character believes that Isabella Gianni is having an affair, and he starts to deteriorate, and because of his behaviour it's threatening to destroy everyone around him. And so it goes into some very deep and dark places, and it's a very psychologically taxing film, which is the reason why I do think it stands the test of time. A lot of these movies that shock audiences, it shocks them by the violence. Because it was really violent back then, by today's standards it's very tame, and so it loses a lot of the impact. But what I think Andrzej Zalowski's Possession does so well is that it maintains that impact because it's not relying on visuals, it's relying on that sense of anxiety. And anxiety is the biggest character in this film, and the anxiety is magnified intensely through the performances of Sam Neill and Isabella Gianni. Now on one side you can say that it's very over the top. Their temper tantrums and their fighting is almost bordering on comical, but I think that Andrzej Zalowski, he did a very good thing in actually exaggerating these performances because you feel out of breath and you feel that strange sense that you're going through an anxiety attack. Is that when you see these people on screen and how they're coping with their problems, I felt I felt very unsettled, and I felt as though I was starting to panic. I was starting to feel that anxiety. And so the movie does have a negative in the way that it almost loses you into bordering on a comedy, but it gives you that impression that there is no air in the environment. The environment's very destructive, it's very toxic, and how are these people going to basically sort out their differences? And it's like a car that's lost its brakes, it's going full ball and it's going to hit the wall, and you know it's going to be terrible, but you can't help but look at it. It's like a car crash. When you see a car crash, you don't want to look at it, but there's something telling you to look at it. And this is basically the way I felt with Andrzej Zalowski's Possession, is that it's a very intense and very cruel film, but I couldn't help but feel as though I wanted to know what was around the corner. Is that you knew it was going to be devastation, but you couldn't help but watch it. And so it's that level of psychology that Andrzej Zalowski does so well, and he intensifies it through the exaggeration to a point where I felt as though I was running out of breath, and I felt very claustrophobic, and that claustrophobic environment is getting smaller and smaller. It's the pressure cooker, and you know it's going to explode. And so the visuals do complement the psychology of the film in that it's very bleak and dreary. It actually reminded me of The Exorcist in that the colour palette was not black and white, but it was almost that. It was almost devoid of colour, and that devoid of colour is basically giving you the sense of grey dreariness, and that dreariness is the symbolisation of what this married couple is going through. And this is something that happens to a lot of people. You know, your marriage is on the brink, and what are you going to do? And the anxiety and the desperation that brings can have a very devastating effect. And so it's a domino effect, and the things that happen in this movie are both very surreal and extremely haunting. And the surreal qualities of the film aren't there just to shock you for the sake of it. It's a symbolisation of what Isabella Gianni's character is going through. And so I just thought it was an incredibly intriguing film. Is that alright, on the outside you see a horror movie, but on the inside it's affecting you in your mind as well. This director is enabling you to put yourself in their shoes and feel the anxiety that these characters are going through. And as I said, it's down to the exaggeration, which is ultimately the biggest problem with the film, is that it does border on going onto a comedy. It does border on basically releasing all that tension. Thankfully it doesn't, but I thought there were one or two instances where I was almost laughing, and that's something that I don't think the film needed. Is that laughing is giving you that alleviating that pressure, and he never does it to a point where I thought it derailed it. But I thought, all right, well, there are a few moments where I thought it could have toned down a little bit, but I do appreciate the fact that it was exaggerated, and that when you see the film you know what I'm talking about, and that exaggeration gives you that anxiety. Basically everything is going full ball, and it's so intense that I felt as though I was running out of breath. And so anxiety is the biggest character in this film, is the biggest villain in this movie, and I think anxiety just crushes changes not only these characters, but also the viewer as well. And so that's why, as I said, this stands the test of time, is because it's not relying on visuals that are outdated. It's relying on that psychological impact that a lot of films and horror don't understand and can't maintain. And so I think this is a very important film, because this is a movie that uses all the right things as far as putting an audience member into the shoes and experiencing what is going on. And when the ghastly things are happening, this is exactly what a horror experience should be. So I do think this movie is very important. I think a lot of psychological horror films can learn a lot from Andrzej Zalowski's Possession, and that is the reason why I am highly recommending this film to anyone who likes your psychological, sort of suspenseful, very uncomfortable movies, and this is definitely regarded as a classic for a very good reason. Alright guys, that's it for the latest episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Until the next episode, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.